that's why I have called this episode Unchecked Power and Unprotected People. Because power that is not accountable becomes violent. And violent that is not resisted becomes policy. Take a deep breath in and exhale it slowly. So, here we go tonight. So, welcome back to Daily Liberation Through Our Eyes, where we are not just reading the news, we're working to reclaim the lens from the news that we're reading. So today is going to be a little bit heavy. We have a lot of headlines that are coming our way in the last 24 hours, and I don't even have all of them. So everyone is proof that power, when it's unchecked, will do everything that it can to protect itself, even at the very cost of the very people that it had sworn itself to be able to serve. So this episode is called Unchecked Power and Unprotected People, when safety becomes a privilege. So because what we are watching right now is not just governmental dysfunction, it's actually what I would call a moral collapse. It's a system that keeps proving that it was never, ever designed for our safety, but more so designed simply and ecstatically for our silence. And yet, here we are. We're still breathing. We're still thinking. We're still learning. We're still unlearning. And overall, we're still surviving as well. So if you have been following this show, you already know what we are here to do now. We slow down all the chaos. So we put things back into a context where we can understand. We talk about what it means to literally be human, to be black, to be brave, to be healing in a world that continues to gaslight us into this fear-based responsive life. So wherever you are, take another deep breath. And let's take a moment to just walk through some of the truths of what we're dealing with in this together. So what I want to start with is about the nuclear furlough crisis. And I believe it's one of the most dangerous headlines of them all. So while most people are talking about political blame, and of course we have the shutdowns, which we'll talk about later, almost nobody is talking about the fact that federal nuclear safety staff have been furloughed. So what does that mean though? Right now, as we speak, some of the people who are responsible for keeping nuclear power plants, waste facilities, and weapons depots secure are either working without pay or not working at all. I want you to think about that for a minute. Just one moment. We're talking about facilities that handles enriched uranium weapons grade plutonium, and spent fuel rods that must be monitored constantly every single hour to prevent contamination, to prevent meltdown, or prevent detonation. So when all that vigilance breaks down, when the experts who know what they're doing, unlike representative government, can't afford to show up, we're not taking a risk, y'all. This is literally a ticking time bomb. If a single leak happens near a water source, if any of the containment systems fail, if a reactor decides it wants to malfunction without proper oversight, millions of people's lives are at stake. Okay? And yet, the people responsible for this crisis are still smiling on television. Negotiation tactic is what it's been called. I think it's absolutely insane. But what I believe they're really doing is they are gambling with human life for the political theater that this government is. And here's the worst part of all of this. They are aware of what they're doing. So this is not ignorance. It's actually indifference. It's a deep moral rot that runs from Congress to the Supreme Court to the man still holding half this nation hostage through fear and fanaticism. And why is everybody afraid of Donald Trump? What y'all been doing? Anyway, so about this shutdown, it's really what I would call a shakedown. It's the Republican Party's way of saying, and also the compromised Supreme Court, and I think they've turned national security into this little hostage note written democracy at the bottom of the ransom for demand. All right, so they've also allowed one man, twice impeached, multi-indicted, con artist, to dictate the rhythm of a government meant to serve 330 million people. And for what? Power, proximity to further whiteness, for the illusion of control in a world that's changing faster than their lives can keep up with. I think this is why, me personally, I keep saying that safety is no longer a necessity. It's a privilege, because when those in power can shut down the very systems that are protecting us and still sleep very well at night, you know the value of human life has been reduced to a political line item. It's just something, another box to check off. And the question I keep asking myself, and I'm going to ask you, why, once again, why is everyone so afraid of this man? Why are people with entire law degrees, lifetime appointments, and constitutional authority, the Supreme Court justices I'm talking about, acting like scared little children in the presence of a tyrant? Why? Fear is currency. And right now, that man is the richest person in America, because the currency of fear, he wields it left and right. He's not wealthy because of his money. He's wealthy because he's managed to be able to own the fear of everyone who refuses to stand up to him. That's why I like Isaiah Martin in Houston, Texas. Y'all vote for Isaiah Martin. But the whole truth is this: fear only works when people cooperate with it. When we internalize it, when we mistake fear for wisdom, When we call cowardice, because that's what we're doing, we're calling cowardice strategy. Because if they'll risk the planet to protect one person's ego, imagine what they do to our communities. And yet, here's what I also know to be true. We have seen worse and we have survived. Our ancestors walked through plagues. People are currently walking through bombs, betrayals, and are still finding ways to sing. And I think that's why they're upset at us. That's why they're so mad now, because we still find ways to sing. So yes, the reactors might be unattended. Yes, the systems are breaking down. But our clarity, our commitment to truth, our capacity to organize, that is the thing that will keep us from melting down with them. Okay, I want you to take a deep breath in. And when we come back, that's exactly where we're going to pick up next. Okay, so stay tuned. We have some more for you. Just stay tuned with me. We're going to go through a whole bunch of stuff tonight. We're going to do our best to not prolong the time, but we'll be right back. All right, thanks. Bye. So, if you have been listening for a while, you know that fear is the first thing I call out when I see it dressed up as leadership. Okay? So, this shutdown, this chaos, this constant noise, it's not just political, it's psychological warfare. Okay? And I want you to continue to understand that this is psychological warfare. So what they're doing is, I believe that they're counting on you being too exhausted to ask all the questions, too afraid to imagine freedom, and possibly too busy surviving to remember that surviving is not the same as living. And I want you to think about that. Surviving is not the same as living. So that's why I wrote my book, Fear, It's Not an Option. Because fear has become the operating system of this entire nation. And if we don't uninstall that, it will reprogram our souls. I want to take a pause here and offer a word about fear, okay? Not the emotion we feel when we're facing danger, though, but the condition in which systems teach us to live in, okay? So my book, Fear, It's Not an Option. Okay. It was born out of years of watching how trauma becomes policy and how policy becomes fear. This is available now through my Substack at tanyaalcoholic.substack.com. And I wrote it for those of us who have been taught that caution is wisdom when in reality, it's conditioning. Okay? I want y'all to hear that. Caution is conditioning. And in our community especially, fear has been passed down like heirloom china, so to speak. We're told to be grateful instead of great. We're told to be quiet instead of questioning. We're told to be humble instead of being whole. But there comes a time in our lives when every one of us must decide that our peace is worth the risk of being misunderstood, misinterpreted. Okay? So, this book, Fear, It's Not an Option, it walks through that decision, and it invites you to sit with the physiology of terror and transform it into the chemistry of courage. So, and I want you to remember that every moment or every movement for justice, from Harriet Tubman to today, started with somebody saying, I feel the fear, but I'm going anyway. Okay? Y'all see this? This book is for every Black reader who feels stuck between calling and comfort. It's a handbook for the heart. It's a spiritual manual for the moment we're living in, actually. And as the world shakes, you'll need tools that remind you who you are when all of the noise gets extremely loud. So, because fear is a liar, but truth always calls you by name. So pick up my book, my first book, Fear It's Not an Option, so that you can walk through the process of coming away from conditioning to becoming who you really are. So welcome back, and let's talk about the stories they hope you'll scroll right on past and never see or talk about. So first and foremost, in Illinois, nearly 3,000 people have been arrested under what's being called Operation Midway Blitz, okay? The footage is bad, okay? And Chief Troy Bovino throwing tear gas into a crowd of peaceful protesters, violating a federal restraining order that explicitly forbade that kind of force and that kind of show for those people. And what was that crime? Speaking of, gathering, demanding that there were some answers. So when law enforcement becomes what I would call a military and protest becomes punishable, or a punishable act, I should say, we're not living in a democracy, okay? We're living in a dictatorship that has very good branding. And I want to say, or I want to ask you all, what happens to the black and brown protesters when the cameras go off? That's why you don't see us out there. Who documents their bruises, though? Who covers their bail? Who tells their mothers and their fathers and their families what happened to them? Our liberation has always been criminalized, and the weapon is always order. Yeah. So, going to Kentucky, Bobby Coleman, the chairwoman of the Hardin County Republican Party, she posted a video on Facebook depicting President Obama and First Lady-elect Lady Michelle Obama as apes dancing to The Lion King, with Trump cast as the Savior King. So, can we call that what it is for real? Digital lynching. A public reassertion that in their world, black brilliance still has to be mocked, it has to be humiliated, and turned into entertainment in order to maintain white power's illusion of superiority, which they're really mediocre. Every racist joke is a policy draft. Every meme is a test balloon for tyranny. And every time they get away with it, the wound gets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Don't make us flip on you, okay? So understand that when we dehumanize people long enough, you make their suffering permissible to everyone else. And that is the psychology of oppression. And speaking of the resurrection of white nostalgia, the Albert Pike statue has been reinstalled in Washington, D.C. Yes, the same statue of a Confederate general and proud white supremacist that protesters tore down in 2020 has been put back up thanks to Trump's executive order on restoring truth and sanity to American history. But that isn't truth, y'all. And it definitely is not sanity. It's gaslighting, which has been cast in a bronze overlay. Okay, so because when they say restoring history, what is it that they really mean? They really mean that they're going to resurrect hierarchy and white supremacy. Yeah. Meanwhile, across the ocean, King Charles was heckled outside of Lichfield Cathedral, called out by a protester asking, how long have you known about Andrew and Epstein? And for once, the silence of royalty said everything. Okay? It is, in a way, poetic. Empires are collapsing under the very weight of their own secrets. Even the crown cannot outrun the consequences of actions of those in their presence. But what fascinates me most is how quickly America forgets that our leaders dine with similar demons. From Mar-a-Lago to Manhattan, the elite have always had shared guest lists and also shared guilt. So that also brings us to another headline: the trial of former Illinois Deputy Sheriff Sean Grayson. Okay, so he testified that he shot Sonia Massey because she said she would rebuke him in the name of Jesus while holding a pot of water. I want you to let this again. A black woman calls on her faith to protect her life. And it's used as justification for her death. That is the theology of white violence. They fear prayer more than they fear pistol. Why are you a police officer? And when a black woman names the sacred, they call it aggression. When she fights back, they call it a threat. When she dies, it's a justifiable death. Thanks, Charlie Kirk. Justified death. And then they tell us to have faith. But what kind of faith can survive death? Over and over and over again. New revelations also show that Epstein, Maxwell, and Harvey Weinstein all stayed at Prince Andrew's private home in 2006, weeks after an arrest warrant for Epstein's abuse of a minor was brought forth. So it's no longer conspiracy. It is confirmation. These men and women clearly built an empire of exploitation, and the world's most powerful families were their silent shareholders. This is what unchecked privilege looks like. When predators become patriots and abusers are called influential or influencers in the world. Going on to Minnesota, though, a man named Tyler Avalos, he's 29 years old, offered $45,000 to murder Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, posting a TikTok with her face in a sniper scope. He was arrested and released on GPS monitoring. Released after making a public threat to assassinate an elected official. That's interesting. Compare that to what happens to young black men who get caught jaywalking. Don't you realize that is honestly the imbalance of the justice system? And while all that chaos distracts the feed, Amazon quietly announces its largest layoffs in corporate history. 30,000 workers will be cut, and that's 10% of their entire workforce. They laying off a tithe of people, y'all. And who gets hit the hardest? We do. Because black employees are always the first to go and the last to be rehired. That is not a coincidence, I don't think. That's capitalism doing what capitalism does. It was designed to do. It's protect profit and not people. Okay? And if you thought that was enough financial pressure, let's talk about those skyrocketing electricity bills. State regulators approved $34 billion in rate hikes this year alone. That's double of last year, y'all. Over 124 million households were affected by such rate hikes this year. So energy poverty is now the new segregation. So you don't need any red lines when you can just raise the light bill. Just raise the light bill. It don't matter. So because the question becomes, how do you build wealth when just keeping the lights on costs the same as a revolution? Virginia, Democrats are now fighting to redraw congressional lines and protect representation in 6 of the state's 11 districts. So every election there is spiritual warfare in real time, as far as I'm concerned. Because the right to vote isn't just about ballots, y'all. It's about belonging. It's about declaring or being able to declare that I exist, and you can't legislate me away. And that's why all of this matters, that over 100 former Department of Justice officials, both Democrat and Republican, signed an amicus brief calling the Comey case vindictive. They're not just going to protect a man, they're protecting precedent, y'all. Trying to remind America that the justice system still has some semblance of a pulse. Some semblance. But in New York and Staten Island, voters have filed a lawsuit claiming that their current district map dilutes Black and Latino votes. So if they win, a single flip district could change the balance of Congress. Okay, so that's a good thing. And this is the work, the quiet, persistent, exhausting work of democracy. It does not make headlines, but it determines who writes the narrative. And finally, Trump has petitioned the Supreme Court for permission to fire Shira Perlmutter, the head of the U.S. Copyright Office, because she had the unmitigated gall to question the legality of using copyrighted work to train artificial intelligence. This is how fascism evolves, y'all. Not just through prisons or through the police force, but through policy that even controls imagination. When a dictator wants to own creativity, what they're really after is control of the human soul. Because that's the only thing humans have. Because if they can copyright your consciousness, they don't need to enslave your body. And that right there is the America that we're currently living in right now. Deep breath in. We are going to take a quick pause, but when we come back from this pause, I'm going to share something I have been waiting a long time to tell you about. All right. And it is good. It is wonderful. It is great. It is beautiful. And I know I ran through some of those quite quickly, but I did so on purpose. I did so that it would not be prolonged time, because I could have went deeply into detail with all of those things. But when we come back, I have something so important and so wonderful to tell you all. Okay, so thank you for being with me here on Deliberation Through Our Eyes, and we will be right back. All right. Welcome back, family, and I thank you so much for sticking in with me. So before we close tonight, I want to take a moment to talk about something that is very close to my heart. A story that's been years in the making, 5 years to be exact. And it's a story about truth and desire and the sacred mess of being human, okay? It's my upcoming book, my first novel, Preacher Girl, okay? And I want you to know right now, this one is not written from the pulpit, even though it has some of those elements in it. It's written from the altar of experience, okay? So it's about what happens when faith and when flesh collide, and when holiness and heartbreak lives in the same body, when the woman behind the sermon finally is able to admit she's tired of surviving her own sanctity. Okay, so this book is not about religion. It has religious aspects, but it is about what I would say it's more about release. It's a story of a woman who gave her life to God, but forgot who she was sacred to. Okay, and maybe that's some of you listening tonight. You've been everyone's miracle except your own. You've carried ministries, you've carried families, you've carried expectations so long that you forgot what your own laughter, your own true, authentic laughter from the deep core sounds like. So Preacher Girl is a mirror for every Black woman who's ever been told she has to pray away or pray her way out of humanity. And it's an invitation to come home to yourself without an apology. So and I want you to see the same world that tells us to be strong rarely gives us the permission to be soft. And the same church that preaches grace often forgets to extend that grace to women like us. But on these pages, we're taking all of that back: our sensuality, our spirituality, and our right to be whole. Okay, so because liberation does not mean I'm leaving God, it means I'm refusing to leave myself behind while I serve the God of my understanding. So when Preacher Girl releases, I want you to read it slowly. Let it remind you that holiness was never supposed to be painful. It was never supposed to hurt. And that pleasure and peace, honestly, we're always part of the promise. And that your calling is not to carry pain. Is to convert that pain that we experience into a purposeful life, a purposeful and meaningful existence. And so you can stay tuned at TanyaAlcoholic.substack.com for any updates and any early excerpts. I'll be sharing passages, reflections, and behind the scenes insight as we prepare to release it to the whole wide world. Because truth, I believe, deserves a space for testimony, even when that truth is uncomfortable, and even when that testimony is not what we want everybody to see. So I want to take us as we close tonight. I want you to have a deep breath in. Let's let it out. And let us work to bring this space back home to where it belongs, okay? Let us work towards that space of bringing everything back to what we need it to be. All right, so we'll be back in a few moments. So we've come out of a conversation about healing the soul. Now we're going to move from healing of the soul to starving the people. Yeah, because make no mistake, hunger is not a metaphor. It is a weapon, and it's being used as just as that, as a weapon. So the latest blow in this shutdown saga comes from the Trump administration's decision, a decision, not a necessity, decision, to refuse to use the contingency fund to cover November food stamp benefits, and telling states not to release funds if they can pay. So the real truth is they can pay them. They have the funds. They are choosing not to. The Republican Party is choosing not to. And so this is not about budgeting. This is about breaking the spirit of those who need food stamps to survive. And while some folks are online yelling, just reopen the government so people can get their food stamps, so people can get their SNAP benefits, what they don't realize is reopening the government without reinstating the ACA subsidies that will skyrocket health insurance costs by up to 118% next year. So if you're paying $700 to pay $7,000 or $1,000, so yeah, you can get groceries. But people not going to live long enough to eat them. Yeah, you can have your groceries. Yeah, you can have them. But who's going to eat them when everybody's dying? So when subsidies for the Affordable Care Act plans disappear, millions of people will lose their coverage. And it's not abstract. It's heart patients. It's people with lupus, multiple sclerosis, ALS, autoimmune diseases. It's the people who keep the hospitals running because they work there but can't afford to be admitted themselves without having to file bankruptcy. Without treatment, they'll die quietly, at home, off camera. And when they die, the numbers look better. One less beneficiary, one less claim, one less cost to a government that has already decided who is disposable. So when I hear politicians say they're worried about deficits, remember this as a truth. They're not cutting spending. They're cutting lifespans. But you want to open the government up. And also, contingency fund, they refuse to use. It was created exactly for this type of emergency, a temporary bridge to keep families fed while Congress acts like children. But instead of building that bridge, they burned it and called it the policy smoke. Okay? This hunger thing is manufactured, and cruelty is the entire point of this whole thing, because hunger makes people obedient. Empty stomachs don't protest. Weak bodies don't march. Desperate parents do not organize. They too worried about the kids eating. It's all psychological warfare with a receipt at the end of it. Okay? But I want you to understand this, that the food stamp program doesn't just feed families, okay? It feeds the entire economy. Every SNAP dollar creates nearly $2 in economic activity. So when those benefits stop, grocery stores lose sales, truckers lose their routes, farmers lose contracts, and rural communities, the same ones who voted for this madness and chicanery, are the first ones hit. But no one wants to talk about that on Fox News. They want to pretend like hunger only exists in the black and brown neighborhoods when they are 70% in some states white. The truth is that this shutdown is a slow motion collapse of the entire supply chain. And guess who's still profiting? Walmart, Amazon, y'all's president. Mine is Obama. But the two largest corporations in America also happen to employ the highest number of workers who apply and get food stamps. Think about that for a moment. They pay poverty wages so their own employees can qualify for federal assistance. Then when those same employees use that assistance at their stores, the companies collect the money back in sales. It's a perfect loop of corporate colonialism. Billions in profit, billions in subsidies, and the workers still can't afford groceries. It's a perfect scheme of business. That's not an accident, okay? That's policy. And that's how you design a system to make the poor profitable, but never make them powerful, okay? And when you begin to strip away their last safety net, which is in this case SNAP benefits, you're not just starving their bodies, you're starving their hope. This is economic violence masquerading as governance, y'all. It's the modern plantation wearing a suit and a tie, heckling you. And yet, here we are again, being told to be patient, to wait it out, to trust the process. But the process is the actual problem. What we need to say, and we need to say it clearly and collectively and without apology, is that no one deserves to starve in a nation that throws away billions of pounds of food every year. Feeding people is not a handout, y'all. It's a human obligation. And any administration that chooses to have people hungry over healing has forfeited its moral authority to govern and should be cast out into the lake of fire. So what we're doing is we're watching a regime that will risk radiation for profit and how it's willing to risk starvation just to remain in a controlled state. They're not protecting America, y'all. They are experimenting on it. And how we respond is going to be how it continues to be. But experiments, they always reveal the truth. And that is the one good thing about experiments. They always reveal the truth. The truth that we, the people, they think are too tired to fight, still have power. The truth that mutual aid is stronger than greed. The truth that our communities feed each other because no one else will. Okay? So, get to know your neighbors. Once again, check on your neighbors. Share a meal. Start a pantry. And don't you, under any circumstances, let anyone convince you that hunger is an inevitability. It is manufactured. And we can shut the factory of manufacturing down. When we come back, we'll have a final word on what it means to stay awake in a world that wants you numb, okay? And thank you once again for tuning into Daily Liberation Through Our Eyes. Sometimes when I sit with all of these things, the shutdowns, the lies, the hunger, the cruelty, I think I have to remind myself that history doesn't repeat itself. It's exposure. It's exposing itself. Any generation gets a front row seat to the same lesson. Power without compassion will always eat itself alive. But what is the danger in that? Is that it devours those who are innocent first. That's why I have called this episode Unchecked Power and Unprotected People. Because power that is not accountable becomes violent. And violent that is not resisted becomes policy. We are living in a time when even evil doesn't hide anymore. It campaigns, it fundraises, it live streams, it gets booked for speaking engagements. Evil. And yet, you're still here, listening, you're thinking, you're breathing. That means that the formula is not working, because if the goal was to make us numb, to make us forget how to care, how to see, how to hope, then your very awareness is rebellion. It's also proof that they have not broken you yet. And don't let them. I will not be broken. So tonight, we were able to talk about many of the systems that gamble with safety, that starve the vulnerable, that glorify the abusers and crucify the survivors and the saviors of the people. But we also talked about something else. Something that they can't legislate. Something that they cannot privatize. Soul. Tell you got soul. Tell you got soul. T-A-N-O-Y-A, soul. Because they're out here playing God with people's lives. We're over here remembering what divinity really looks like. Not in cathedrals, not in courtrooms, but in care. In the community, in the quiet act of not giving up, not giving in. And that's why every meal that we share, every protest that we walk on, every truth that is told through these spaces like podcasts, all of this is sacred. Liberation in this state isn't just what happens when the system changes. It's what happens every time that we refuse to become what the system demands of us to become. And I want you to also remember something as we come to an end tonight. You don't need permission to protect your peace. You don't need approval to tell the truth. You don't need a title to change the world that surrounds you. All you need is breath and intention and a willingness to stay human in an inhumane time. Because they can control budgets. They can control those. They can control food, but they cannot control consciousness. But they're trying to. And the moment that you wake up to that truth, the world will shift just a little bit closer to justice. So, to everyone watching, to every heart still fighting, to every soul that is still remembering or trying to remember, thank you. Thank you for being the flaw in that formula. I want you to inhale courage and exhale fear. All right. So until next time, this is Daily Liberation Through Our Eyes. My name is Dr. Tanya Alcoholic, and I am going to be here to remind you that liberation isn't something we wait for. It is something that we practice. Be well, be wise. Please be wise. And above all else, be free. Breaking news tonight. Y'all thought we was done, huh? Woo! Not at all. We are not done for the one time. Okay, so see, in a world where every headline feels like another bruise to the spirit, we still get reminders that goodness is not extinct. It's just underreported. Underreported goodness. I like that time. So while some folks are too busy building platforms of pain, others are out here putting faith into action. Faith into action. And tonight, that honor belongs to the one and only Pastor Jamal Bryant. So instead of asking his congregation for tithes, Pastor Bryant told his people to bring groceries. He said, "Don't bring me your envelopes. Bring me your bags. Not your money bags, grocery bags." He has turned, or is turning, his sanctuary into a storehouse. And he's not doing it for spectacle. Okay? Not looking for seed offerings. Not looking for cash apps flashing across the screen. No manipulation wrapped in a sermon. Just faith. And food. And community. What is his goal? To make sure families who are being hit by the food stamp cuts and job losses and government indifference don't have to face empty cabinets and empty hope at the same time. Think about that. I think that's what leadership really looks like. Okay? That's what love really looks like when it gets tired of waiting on permission to care about the people surrounding them. Because a real leader doesn't need a spotlight to shine. They just need compassion that refuses to clock out. I want you to hear that. Compassion that refuses to leave. So if every pastor in this country followed that example, especially if y'all mega churches, we would have to debate faith in politics. We'd see faith feeding people. We'd see faith healing people. We'd see faith paying people's light bills instead of pastors' mortgages. And that is the kind of theology that touches the very ground that we walk on. And it's not the doctrines of demons or the traditions of men, but it is the gospel of empathy, not the sin thereof. So I want to shout out Pastor Jamal Bryant and to every leader doing the quiet work that will never make the news cycle, because that is how liberation moves quietly. It's consistent, and it becomes contagious eventually. Hopefully it will become contagious when y'all mega churches. Talking about contagion, let's talk about something new. Something I've been cooking up. Behind the scenes. Ooh. It's called the Chaos Buffet. Now, some of you have already heard what I said tonight. I was going to be revealing something. I'm going to tell you what it really is, okay? So what it really is it's a web novel that I'm writing over on tanyaalcoholic.substack.com. And it's really unlike anything that has ever been done before. The Chaos Buffet is what happens when you look at this world. It's the billionaires pretending to be messiahs, the politicians performing morality plays, the preachers selling salvation like stock options, and you decide to tell the truth through fiction. It's satire and symbolism. It's also prophecy and parody, all served up at one table. And seated at that table, some of the world's most infamous villains, reborn as characters in a story that looks a lot like the one we're living through right now, because it is. Think of it like this: if history keeps repeating itself, the Chaos Buffet is the meal we're going to be forced to eat, and until we learn how to cook something new. Okay, so each chapter will pull from real events, real people, and the spiritual madness of a world that confuses power with divinity. And I don't look at it as just entertainment. I look at it as a space of revelatory embodiment. Because when the truth becomes too painful to say outright, we hide it in the story. And those with ears to hear will still hear it. So the Chaos Buffet is for those who are really tired of pretending the world is not on fire, but still believe in building something sacred from the ashes. Okay. It's also for those who can laugh at the absurdity without losing sight of this apocalypse, which is the unveiling. So I want you to stay tuned on my Substack, TanyaAlcoholic.substack.com, for the first chapter will be dropping soon. And trust me, you're not going to want to miss it. You want a front row seat to this here table, okay? Because while they're feasting on chaos, we're going to feed on the truth, okay? So once again, deep breath in. This, once again, has been Daily Liberation Through Our Eyes, and I am Dr. Tanya Alcoholic signing off, but I am never, ever, 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 ever going to be silent. Keep your heart open and your pantry stocked and your spirit grounded in this season, in this time. So until next time, family, stay free, stay full, and stay faithful. Thank you so much for listening to the Family Table Podcast and all of our various ecosystems. As you all know, this is a grassroots initiative, and we rely on the generous support of listeners and contributors like you to help grow and sustain this movement. And here are a couple of ways that you can help us to continue to build this impactful ecosystem, okay? First and foremost, you can engage and you can share, okay? Spread the word about the Family Table by sharing our content with your various networks. Also, please consider following us on social media under @AllThingsTanya on Instagram and TikTok. That is @AllThingsTanya, both on Instagram and on TikTok. And use our hashtag #TheFamilyTableNC to engage with the conversation. You can also join our new Facebook community that we are starting to grow and build. You can like and follow that group. It is called the Family Table NC. And just show your support by giving us stars and sharing our page as we continue to develop that group as well. And finally, if you want to contribute financially, you're more than welcome to do so. And you can support our work by making a monetary donation to help cover production costs, enhance quality content, and expand our reach as well. You can do that through our Cash App, which is $SWIFT18. That's $SWYFT18. And you can tag that for the Family Table NC. Additionally, we do have options for Zelle and Venmo as well. If you'd like that information, you can contact us at the group. Your contributions and your engagement, they not only help sustain this podcast, but also help to amplify our shared vision for unity, healing, and growth within our communities, of course. So every share, every donation, and every review matters. And we deeply appreciate your commitment to this journey that you're taking alongside us. Thank you so much for being a part of our family, and understand that together we can overcome to see the results at the family table. Let's build together, okay? So for information on questions or collaborations, you can contact us via email at thgbusinessconsulting@gmail.com. That is thgbusinessconsulting@gmail.com. Once again, that is T as in Thomas, H as in hard, G as in girl, businessconsulting@gmail.com. Thanks, and hope to hear from you soon. Bless you all. Bye-bye.